Hello there, everybody. My name is Trickster Shadow. I'm a variety killer main with over 5,000 hours in DBD. Variety meaning that I try to play everybody to at least a semi-decent level. I think I have a pretty extensive knowledge of how all the killers work on the meta in DBD, how the perks work, how the maps work. I think I understand DBD quite a bit, and I should because I play DBD every day on Twitch. I stream it for people. That's what I do full time, and I should at least be halfway knowledgeable, halfway good at the game that I just spend so much time interacting with. I would hope so, at least. And I've been inspired lately by Scott Jund. Scott Jund is a creator on both YouTube and Twitch. I puts out very informative discussion videos and about DBD, and I was inspired to make one of my own. And this is an idea that I've been having for a while that I've been kind of mulling over. And I've been thinking for a while about a complaint that I hear from pretty much everybody. I hear it from experienced killers, from experienced survivors, from new killers, from new survivors. I hear it on Twitch, I hear it on YouTube, I hear it on Discord, I hear it on Reddit, I hear it everywhere. And this is a problem that I feel like whenever it's addressed very minimally. It's addressed in small changes that don't address the core issue at hand. And the problem that I think that DBD has, one of the biggest problems I think DBD has, is perk synergy. Not even necessarily perks themselves, but how perks interact with each other. And what I mean by that is pretty much everybody that's played DBD has run into matches that feel like they're out of your control. Run in as survivor, you're solo queuing or playing with a friend or two, and you run into a Freddy running 4 game slowdown perks and running double jump ropes, and he's just running a typical like forever Freddy build. He's running like pop, corrupt, ruin, sloppy butcher, and it just makes it where the game lasts 20 minutes, and it's not fun for the survivors, and it may be like a little bit fun for the killer just because they're able to keep control of the map without really putting in that much effort. But it's just a drag as survivor, and the same thing for killer, to where you might play a match of killer and you run into a squad that has multiple unbreakables, multiple dead hearts, multiple adrenalines, multiple sprint bursts, multiple object of obsessions, and that just feels very unrewarding playing, because at that point you just feel like you're being out perked. You're not really necessarily being out skilled. The people you're playing against aren't necessarily better than you, and you're not necessarily worse than them. It's just they have good perks equipped. And that's a very annoying thing, and it's a very frustrating thing, especially in a game like DBD, where perk builds are pretty like integral to how people play the game. Like people always ask me like, what's the best perk build to run for this, for that, for this, and the perk synergy I feel like is something that's not addressed. We every so often we get like small nerfs or small buffs to certain perks. May get a nerf, or like we got a buff to Pop the Weasel, or we may get a nerf to self care, but we never get a bigger chunk of change from how perks work together. And the reason why I think that should happen is because of those complaints that I always hear, and the fringe cases of running into Forever Freddy's or squads that are just like massively out perking you, because those fringe cases are what make people stop playing games. As much as the devs may not want to develop towards fringe cases, trying to keep player experience happier is something I think is worth investing in, because it shouldn't come down to a single player having a bad day running 4 slowdowns as Freddy, ruining 50 people's nights in a row, or 50 people's night, just because they're playing match after match of Forever Freddy, and them just actively ruining people's experiences just by using stuff that's in the game. And I feel like the devs need to address that. And the way that I think that they should address it is using a concept that they already had in the game at the game's conception. So when the game first released back in 2016, there was perk rarities. There used to be iridescent perks, and there used to be very rare perks. There used to be even common perks. But this was something that the devs did away with. And I believe the concept that the devs were going with at the beginning is that there were strong perks in the game, and those strong perks would be iridescent. They'd be harder to find in the blood web, and as a result of them being harder to find, they'd be like their strength would be justified, because you would ideally see them in less matches, or at least they'd be less strong because they'd be less leveled. But the thing is that people like me kept on playing the game. There's so many hours in the game to where we would have all the perks level 3, and we would have the best builds, and the rarity really didn't matter all that much at a certain point. And this is a screen grab I believe I got from a Hybrid Panda video back in early 2017, showing the iridescent perks, iridescent sprint burst, sabo, self care, and decisive. And this is something I think the devs should go back to. And this next slide is a vertical slice of an idea I have on how to fix Dead by Daylight perks energy. And this may be a little bit weird to look at, but basically my idea is to categorize all the perks again, ideally getting advice and feedback from the Fog Whisper program or from veteran players. However, the devs decide to get information from people that are knowledgeable about the game, because there's countless amounts of people that play DBD every waking hour, pretty much, and would love to help contribute to like the game's development and making the game a better experience. And so this idea is that we put perks in terms of like their strength and their different tiers. Like Pop Goes the Weasel, Ruin, Corrupt, those are great perks. Put them in Iridescent, and they'd be worth 4 points. Infectious Fright, Barbecue, Sloppy, they're still really strong. But they're may not be necessarily as strong as the Iridescent perks. And so put them in very rare. And of course, you don't have to agree with this. It's just concept. And then going all the way down the line. Going down to even like the Monster Shrine, Bloodhound, Insidious, like they're kind of meh perks. And so they're worth 0 points because they're common. And my idea is that the perks would all be worth different point values. They would have different weights. And the loadouts for both Killer and Survivor would be limited by a maximum amount of points. So for kind of concept purposes, I put 10. And so with this, you could make a loadout, and as long as it is below or meets 10, then you could load up into a public match and be able to play it no problem. And the reason for this is to try to have people play with a more of a variety of perks, have people test out different builds and how things work, and instead of just running like all the slowdown perks. Because if you don't incentivize people to not do something by just changing how the game works, people are just never going to do it. Because there's no reason not to run 4 games slowdown perks other than you just kind of feel bad. Really. Or there's no reason not to run 4 second chance perks other than you just feel bad. And so I think that this would be a good idea for both sides, because if you did this just to one side, then it would be terrible. If you did this just to Killer and then you didn't do this to Survivor, that'd be very punishing and it would not be rewarding at all. You'd have to do it for both sides at the same time. And so as you can see, like this build, Bamboozle and Nurse, I know, very OP. You can bamboozle the Z-Walls, so survivors can stop infinitying you. This build would work. This build would be fine. But if you try to run like 3 game slowdowns, try to run Pop, Ruin, Corrupt, the game would tell you no, you can't load it into a public match. Your perks are weighed too heavily, and you need to swap out your loadout. And what you could do with this is, okay, so like I still want to run Pop and Corrupt. So those perks are worth 8. That means I can run a green perk, a very rare perk, or I can run a uncommon perk. I can run 2 of them maybe. Or I could even run a green perk, like Make a Choice. Make a Choice is still pretty okay. I just gotta get back to the hook and get back to the person, be able to down them. And then I could run like Monster Shrine. Maybe I'd get some value out of it. I don't know. Just because I can't run anything else. And I think that would make it where not only would the game be easier to understand, while this seems complicated, I think this would make the game a little bit easier to understand for new players, and it would make the game less oppressive to experienced players, to casual players, to everybody. And what I mean by like it'd be easier to understand is if you see a killer has what you know to be a strong perk, if you see they have Pop Goes the Weasel, if you see they have Corrupt, dang, those are 2 really strong perks. That's already 8 points out of their 10 allotted points. And so their other perks, they either have like 1 perk that is like semi-decent, like Make a Choice, or they have like 2 like kind of meh perks. And as soon as you identify like their 3rd perk, you're like, okay, like that's the rest of the build. We don't have anything else to worry about. And I think that'd be interesting. I at least think it would be interesting, but maybe I'm biased because I'm like trying to come up with this concept. And I think that this would help out a lot with just how DBD works, because currently they can't what the devs run into when they make new perks is they got to think about not only how the perk operates in a vacuum, like when they make a new perk, like, okay, is this perk OP by itself? Okay, it's not. And now they got to think about, okay, is this perk OP synergizing with the other 70 plus perks we have? Because killers have 72 and survivors have a little bit more than that. Do any other perks that we have created so far, do they make it where this perk is OP? And if it does, then we got to tone down that perk a little bit, or tone down like one of the other perks a little bit. And then they got to go from that to where if it's a killer perk, they got to go from not only perk synergy, but how it interacts with other killers' powers. Because certain perks like Strider are very good for Spirit, but they're not as Strider's not as good for everybody else. And what they can do with this is if they notice a perk overperforming, they could raise it up by a point, or underperforming, they could lower it by a point. So more people run it in their builds, or less people run it in builds. And so it's less impactful in matches. This way they could make changes on the fly with the game. They can make a change every couple of weeks if they wanted to, because it's just adjusting a point value. And they can influence the meta of the game and keep the game fresh, so that it doesn't just stagnate into 4 slowdown meta and or 4 second chance meta, and the game just becomes just a grind and just eats at your soul because it's just so frustrating to play. And then you could even like go as far, you could go even a little bit further. Like I said, with Strider, you can make it where Strider is a little bit more of a rare perk on Spirit alone, but it's not as rare for everybody else. So like you can say like Strider is like a 3 or a 4 on Spirit just because it's so good. But on everybody else, it's like a 2 or a 1. And that way you could nerf perks for particular killers, or not even really nerf them, but just make it to where if they want to run those perks, they gotta take some more sacrifices for running those, instead of just blanket nerfs across the board. Because some perks, they may synergize super well with a particular killer, but not as well with everybody else, and they may be kind of meh, but nerfing them just makes it to where nobody uses them. And this would be a much better system in order to push out nerfs and buffs, even like every like half a month, maybe in between like mid chapters and chapters. And it would keep the game very fresh and be able to keep a little bit better of a handle on how the game operates. And after the initial perk overhaul, this would be very easy to manage when like perks come out. Just address the fog whispers. Hey, we have these concepts for builds, and we want you guys to like test it out and then tell us like where you think the builds should place. And then after the builds are out in the P2E, after the builds are out in live, for like the new perks that come out, then you could adjust it. Okay, like this perk is actually overperforming a little bit more than we thought it should, so we're going to adjust the point values, or it's underperforming, we're going to adjust the point values. And yeah, that's basically my idea on how to fix Dead by Daylight, how to address one of the biggest issues with perk synergies. And I would love to know what you guys think. This is the first video of its kind that I've ever made, and so I'm sorry if I'm like very ranty or if it's very like incoherent. I hope that I got it across at least semi well. I would love to hear what you guys think in the comments down below, or if you want to come into my Twitch stream and talk about it with me directly. I try to live stream most days, typically around 6, but I may stream a little bit earlier just because my internet is kind of bad at times. Or you can tweet at me, or really anything. Just tweet at me, put a YouTube comment at my Twitch stream. I would love to get back to you guys, and I would love to interact with anybody that has played DBD and either thinks it's a good idea, bad idea, think it's good but could use some changes, or think it's terrible and would not work for these particular reasons. I would love to hear anything and everything from you guys, and I appreciate any feedback that you guys could provide. And if you enjoyed this type of video and think I should do more of these, feel free to tell me. I have a lot more ideas on how DB could improve the game, from very minor changes to bigger changes like this, and I would love to express them. And I may do so in the near future. And I think that's pretty much it, everybody. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day or night, whatever it is for you. And thank you guys for watching. Even just taking a moment out of your day to watch my videos really does mean a lot to me. And I hope that the rest of your day or night just goes well, and you guys just have an amazing time. And I hope that your games go well, and that you don't run into 4 slowdown Freddy's in your matches, because that would suck. All right, bye everyone, and have a good day.